Hey guys, thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of the Scattered Roots podcast. Before we get started, we do want to mention that this episode contains sensitive material regarding violence, death, self-harm, and suicide. Viewer discretion is advised. If you or someone you know are struggling with mental health and or suicidal thoughts, please consider the resources available in the description box and our Instagram at Scattered Roots Pod. Welcome back, everyone, to the Scattered Roots podcast. What's up, Rudy, man? That was a banger, bro.
Bob. My parents would be so proud of me for playing that.
Boy, that was a banger, man. What's up, man? How are you?
I am well. Thank you for asking.
You're sitting a little bit close to me today. What's up?
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are kind of close. You know, you asked for this.
I did.
You wanted to be closer.
I feel like the bench was really separating us. We have to bring it together.
Man, we got a surprise. That's why we're...
Well, what we got?
We have our first guest on the Scattered Roots podcast. Shout out. But so we have for the first time a guest here to kind of...
This is where you're in shirt, like clapping and
provide. Oh yeah, we'll have a little woo. We have someone here that can, I think, now hopefully provide some perspective that I think you and I cannot as men. Mm-hmm. There are certain things we can't really speak to. As Mexican Americans, we might be a little bit limited in our scope in discussing, you know, the Latino American dynamic and Latinos just in general. And I think it's just good to have somebody else. So without further ado, what do we got? We got Estefani.
Hi guys.
Hello.
Hey.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really good.
Are you nervous?
A tad.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's okay.
I'm nervous too.
Yeah, me too. Cool. We'll see how it goes.
I'm nervous.
But we're excited. Like I said, we are hopefully today going to have a conversation that will go beyond what you and I have been able to touch upon in the first few episodes. And I think it'll be a really good one. I think you're a very interesting person, Estefani.
I appreciate that.
We had a conversation it was a couple of weeks ago now.
Yeah.
But I feel like there was so much insight that you really provided and so many topics that you could talk on that I was like, I have to have you on. And I'm excited. You're our first guest. So
that's what's up.
Hopefully it goes well. So I guess we'll just start off with this. Tell us a little bit about yourself and keeping in mind, you know, your identity and culture and all that good jazz.
Yeah. Like Rudy said, my name's Stephanie. I am 26, born and raised here in Dallas, Texas. My background is I am Salvadorian and Honduran.
Nice.
To all my people out there. My parents... Well, first off, my dad is Salvadorian.
Okay.
My mom is Honduran, and that's where you get this little cute ball right here.
Oh, I see.
What's up? Yeah.
They were born. Were they born?
Yes, they were born in their homelands.
Okay. Cool. And then, how long did they stay in those respective homelands before they came?
From what I was told, my dad came here when he was about 22, 23, and my mom was about the same age. They met each other that same year that they both got here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Here being Dallas, they met here in Dallas?
Yes, they met here in Dallas.
Shout out to Triple D, bro.
Bringing people together.
So you were born and raised here in Dallas?
Yep.
Cool.
Born and raised.
And then what has your relationship now been with that Latino background? Like individually, like for your Honduran side. So which one's your dad is Salvadorian?
Yes.
And your mother's Honduran?
Yes.
So what's that relationship been like for yourself with having that split background?
I absolutely love it. They're both very different, but in a way they're kind of similar, and I am just very, very proud of my background. There is something that you just can't take away from me, and that is my background. You know, yeah. I'm hardcore all about El Salvador, all about Honduras. Anything that resides back to the motherland, you know, where my parents are from, I will definitely support it. I can wear t-shirts, stickers, whatever it may be, la música, whatever it may be.
We love it.
I'm all about it.
Nice. And so you speak Spanish?
Yes.
You're fluent?
I would say so, yes.
Yeah?
I mean, a little bit of Spanglish, but I would say I speak more than most. Yeah.
Same. Nice. And actually, I think you are a better Spanish speaker than I am. Do you write and read Spanish as well?
Yes, I do.
Damn, I'm so jealous.
Should have made her.
Yeah,
we should have her on the Spanish episode. So both, you resonate, I would say equally, or you would say equally with both?
I'll be completely honest with you. I am a lot closer to my Salvadorian side than I am with my Honduran side. My mom is kind of the same way. She is the Honduran woman in the family, and she is more closer to the Salvadorian side as well. I think it's more because she visits the land more often than she does her own land, from Honduras. It's been a good 10 years since she's been, but El Salvador, she goes every year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So she's even kind of not assimilated, but a little bit to that Salvador. Okay.
For sure. Even the food that she cooks, it's más Salvadorian food than it is Honduran food.
I just asked because it's interesting, right? Like I'm Mexican Guatemalan. I don't know if you know that. My mom's Guatemalan, but she like very much assimilated into Mexican culture.
Kevin didn't even know he was Guatemalan for most of his life.
I had no idea. I didn't know she was Guatemalan until like, I don't know, like 12, 13 or something like that.
Wow.
And so, she kind of completely is assimilated into Mexico because she visits, similar to what you're saying, she visits Mexico.
More often?
Yeah. So I don't even think she's ever been back to Guatemala. Yeah.
Have both of your parents been back to their... Well, you said your mom was.
Okay, cool. My parents, they try to go every year since basically I moved out.
Oh, okay, nice.
So they've been going back for the last 8 years consistently. But my mom, I know she wants to go to Honduras, but from what I've always been told, that it's just a lot more dangerous than it is from El Salvador.
Yeah.
So my mom she's a very protective woman. Putting us in danger, she won't. You know what I mean?
And how about yourself? Have you been to both places?
Yes, I have visited both. The last time I visited Honduras, I was about 6 years old. I don't have much memory. Ago. I mean, I have a couple of memories, but not to the point where I'm like, oh, I want to go back again. But El Salvador, I was just there last year, and it's home. It's home for me.
Yeah, when we were having a conversation, it felt that there was a lot of attachment there. That when you spoke about El Salvador and going back, and even when you said like that lifestyle that you live there, I felt a very strong attachment and like love for that.
Yeah, I mean, when I come back so humbled. You appreciate what we have here in America. I mean, running toilets, electricity all the time, water that's... You can literally turn your faucet on and you have water all the time. In El Salvador, it's not like that.
For sure.
It's completely not like that. One thing that I do love is just that you can literally go out in the street and people are just the most friendliest to you. They'll say buenos dias. There's music playing. There's kids on the street playing. You don't see that here anymore.
It's a lot of community.
It's
a lot of family.
Yeah, it's like everyone watches out for each other. It's just a really beautiful thing to see, especially when we don't see that here anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think because like... everybody around you.
Yeah.
You have a relationship established with everybody. Like, you can literally live, like, here in the U.S., you can live 2 doors down from somebody and maybe have said, like, 10 words in, like, 5 years. Mm-hmm. But in, communities like in El Salvador and Mexico, like, wherever it may be, you absolutely know everything about your neighbor 2 doors down because you rely on community to kind of just live life.
Yeah, and the thing that's crazy is I feel so much more safer there than I do here. Like
Absolutely.
When I go out in the streets here, I feel like I gotta like look around. It may just be me being a woman here, but in El Salvador, it's not like that. Everyone knows you and everyone has an eye out for you. So if something was to go wrong, they'd be like, oh no, esa nena ya no está allí, algo le pasó. But here, everyone's like, oh, okay, let me close my curtain. Like I didn't see nothing, So it's one of the things that I guess I got used to, but...
Yeah.
Do you have... Sorry, you spoke Spanish right now. Do you have an accent that leans either way? Do Hondurans and Salvadorans have a distinct accent?
They do have different accents, and they do have different lingos, but I've always been told that I don't even sound like either of them. I've been told that I sound like I'm Puerto Rican, but I don't hear it,
Interesting.
So... but from people who don't really know me, they're like, oh, you're Salvadorian, right? I'm like, yeah.
Oh,
how did
nice.
you know? Oh, your accent or by this word that you use. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah, but that's
I was going to ask like how different or similar the kind of, I guess, dialects and the different, like you said lingo, like slang words that you use. Like obviously they both speak Spanish, right? But they can be very different as we discussed in our language podcast. I
know in El Salvador, the lingo is just, I don't know, there's some words that I don't dare myself to say, like maje. It really depends on how you're using it. You know what I mean? It could come out offensive, or you could just be playing with your homie next to you. But to me, it's just, it sounds like a dirty word, so I just don't use it.
What is it? Maje?
Maje.
What does that mean? I have no idea.
It really depends how you use it. It can be like full or like, I don't know, like this asshole. You know what I mean?
I got you.
I whispered when I say that.
I got you.
But in El Salvador, Honduras, they don't use the same. I mean, they have similar lingos, but not similar lingos. Like our enchiladas out there in Honduras, son tostadas for los mexicanos.
Really?
So, yeah, so my mom's like, oh, estoy haciendo enchiladas, it's really tostadas. And that's how our lingo is, yeah.
Add that one to the
weird,
to the
yeah,
list.
interesting.
And like menudo,
Hey, what do you call straws?
well, I call them popotes.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah,
All right.
but I've
one of
also,
us.
I've also heard them called pajillas, but I like popotes better.
Interesting.
Menudo, here menudo is menudo, right? But out there it's mondongo.
I've heard that one.
Mondongo. I have heard that too.
Yeah, I've
and
heard
it's
that.
the same exact thing.
Cardi B blew that up like a couple days ago. I
Yeah.
I'm
think.
gonna say that's a Dominican thing too, though, right?
Yeah.
Mondongo.
I've heard it used in other
I'm probably
countries too.
mispronouncing
Yeah.
it. Interesting.
No, you're saying it. Actually,
And it's like the same thing.
Exact
essentially?
same
The dish
thing.
is the same. Okay,
exactly the same.
just called it different.
Hey,
different,
you know
yeah.
what's funny? I had to deny menudo like 2 hours ago. I got offered it by my madrina.
See, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Do you like it?
I love menudo.
Yeah, he's tripping, right? He says it's trash.
Do you
Well,
have
we
you?
don't-
But have you? You don't have pozole, right?
We don't have pozole. My people don't do that. We don't make it. So whenever it's good. Don't get me wrong. Pero menudo. It's always will be number one.
Pass.
This guy.
Next
This guy.
question. But okay, cool. So, yeah. So a very interesting background. Now, with that being said, you said that you have a very strong attachment to even both, right? A little bit more Salvadorian, but just being a Latina, you feel very proudly about that.
Yeah.
Has that always been a thing? Like since you were younger? Like has this love and attachment that you have for like your identity? Because I feel like, I know I've said this before, that mine has been much more recent, right? And just kind of seeking to understand myself and my background and like really like learning to love like who I am as a person as far as like, culturally. And I don't know if you've had a similar kind of progression, because being young in the U.S., I feel like especially schooling in the United States can kind of pull you away from your culture sometimes.
Okay.
So I don't know if you've always felt so strongly about
That's
your
a little
background.
interesting because for me, I was raised in a household where we were only speaking Spanish. My parents didn't really know English that well. They understood it, but didn't really speak it well. So it wasn't ideal for me and my brother to speak English to them, and that we knew that they couldn't speak it back. So when I started school, they put me in ESL, I think about first grade, because I just didn't know English. They were teaching me English. So
Gotcha.
Spanish was my first language.
Yeah.
And I didn't maybe learn it fluently until I was in third grade. So I've always been aware of, que soy Latina.
Got you.
It wasn't until maybe I was in high school where I was like, I am Latina and I am proud. But before then, I never really thought about it. It was kind of just like my everyday thing. I had Latin friends. We spoke Spanish to each other, and it was never like, oh, what are you? That question was never asked. As children, I don't think we really think about it.
Did you grow up in a like minority heavy neighborhood?
Honestly, no. I grew up in Farmers Branch, and my little block was basically all old folks.
Why you gotta talk trash, man?
People don't even know where Farmers Branch. So just to provide
north?
It's
yeah,
north.
it's like a northern, almost suburban part of Dallas, but it's very.
It's a good place to raise your children, though.
Yeah, for sure.
You don't hear gunshots at night. People don't break into your homes. It's not.
It's not fun.
It's not fun.
Is what she's saying.
Well, back then, everything was fun. You know what I mean? Our generation was where we can go outside, get on our little bikes, and
For sure.
ride around, and it'd be fun.
Hey, bro, I had a cool ass bike growing up with
Or,
some
like,
Diablos
rollerblading.
on it.
Oh,
You had the pegs?
That's Diablos.
Yeah.
That's what they're called.
yeah.
Word?
Yeah.
This is new to me.
No, I knew that.
Yeah.
Diablos?
Diablos, yeah.
Dang, they didn't teach me that. I didn't have pegs on my bike. That's why I didn't know. they checked my pegs.
Broke boy. But okay, interesting. And so you mentioned right now your parents didn't really speak that much English. What has their relationship with the United States been? And I guess what's your relationship been with, because you love your Latino background.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit more about now your relationship with the US and then your parents, if you don't mind.
Well, like I said, my parents didn't really know that much of English. So I was the one that was translating. I remember being like 8 years old, going to like parent-teacher conferences, and I'm literally translating everything. Even when the mail that would come in, the bills that would come in, I was translating. My brother...
Would they get mad at you if you didn't translate correctly?
No, I mean, I was really honest too. Like, if the teacher said said, "Oh, she talks too much," I would literally tell my mom that I talk too much.
Well, I used to lie my ass off at parent teacher conference. Hey, your son is a mess. A mess. Es que, mire, soy un ángel. Es lo que está diciendo.
No, I was
And my mom would
honest.
just be like, okay.
Yeah, very good. I was talking about more so like sometimes, well, at least my parents would like ask me to like translate something for them, and like I'd be like, I don't know what this means. I'm, ¿para qué vas a la escuela? Entonces, like, they get mad at me, like, damn, I'm sorry, I didn't know what this means.
For me, at least, if I didn't know how to translate it, I would try to go find a way to translate it.
Okay.
You know, I was that goody two shoes kid. I can't lie to you. I would do a lot.
So my parents are bullies.
I mean, my dad would be kind of like, well, how do you not know what this means? But my mom, she was a lot more lenient with me.
Gotcha.
She was patient with me.
And that's the dynamic of like a mother and a father, right? A little bit like the mother's the loving, caring one, the father's the stern.
Now that I'm older, it's a little bit opposite for me. Yeah,
Nice.
for sure. My
I was
dad.
gonna say, is it because like, well, like, you know, mama's boys, but then girls usually are like daddy's girls.
For
Like,
sure.
I don't know if that's
I can agree with that.
I guess, yeah, maybe that's my perspective.
yeah. See, there you go. Let her speak on it.
My brother is grown. He's almost 30, and my mom babies him. But I think that's just our culture too. You know.
Is that?
I would think so. At least in my home, it was. My mom. I remember being little, and my mom was like, "Oh, lava los trastes. Come serve your daddy's plate," and I'd be like, what do you mean? Like, oh.
Y el otro?
Exactly. I'd be like, well, why isn't my brother doing it? And she'd be like, oh, he's a boy. I'm like, okay, and
I don't make the rules, bro. I just live here. That's what I would be like.
It was a really, actually, that created a border between me and my mom.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it really
Interesting.
did. She wanted me to wear dresses, and I was like, no, let me just wear my sneakers and some pants.
So you were a tomboy? I remember this in high school, I think.
I mean,
Trying to be dripped out, mom.
no,
Get on my face.
I just wanted to be comfortable. I just didn't want to wear
Gotcha.
pink dresses, mom.
I'm
You know what I
dead.
mean? She was
Yeah.
into those fluffy ones. And
That's not me.
It was not me. But my brother, he is definitely, I would definitely say a mama's boy. My mom, he still lives with my parents, but he's comfy there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He gets fed, his room gets clean, laundry gets done.
Hey, y'all got an extra room? What's up?
No worry. I mean, my mama do, but please don't. She already has too many men in that house.
I'm dead.
But I mean, now that I'm older, I see it. I get it. That was the way she was raised, right?
Yeah.
That women have to be at home, clean, make sure that whenever your husband's home, the food's ready. I was a little bit different. I wanted it to be like, no, what's my husband gonna cook for me? You know what I mean? Or what's he gonna clean? Because I've never seen my dad clean. And if I seen him cook, era un huevo. That was about it. Just an egg.
Dang.
One. Just
One.
a single egg.
Or he would take us to McDonald's because he just didn't feel like cooking
Hey,
us
yeah,
an
it's
egg.
just easy, bro. We here for efficiency. I'm dead. But so now that you've seen that kind of dynamic play out, do you want to break that?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, now that I'm older, I wish I would have paid attention more to my mom cooking because I can't make arroz to save my life.
Oh my god.
Like, I cannot make arroz. Se me
How are you
sale.
gonna get married?
I mean,
Oh,
no,
I
I'm just
don't-
playing.
Relax.
I know. I'm just like, wait,
She's about to couple guys
what?
to this table and whoop your ass, boy.
I'm just playing.
We will never have another guest on this show.
I remember thinking when I was little, my mom would ask me this question, and I'd be like, "Oh, I'm gonna hire someone to cook for me because I'm not gonna deal with it."
Because I got it like that, mom.
Because
What
I
you
know,
mean?
12-year-old me thinking
I'm
the
dead.
most. But now that I'm older, I mean, I definitely, whenever I have my children, I want them to all just put in their work. Like, okay, someone does the dishes, and it doesn't matter if you're a boy or a girl. You guys have to just do your part. You know,
Yeah.
we're in a different world now.
I think it's interesting is that comes from being here in the States, I think.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Because I feel much the same where I was raised with these kind of dynamics, right? Where the mom and the wife or the woman of the house does XYZ. And we've spoken about this a little bit. But now that I've seen it, I think even myself as a guy, I don't want to perpetuate these stereotypes or these roles like moving forward. So, but I think that's coming from being here in the U.S.
sure.
and
So-
seeing other people.
So do you think women growing up in these countries, like little girls growing up in Mexico and Honduras, don't necessarily feel like what she felt, talking about she was trying to break it? Like you're saying they would conform and keep that kind of, I guess, quote unquote tradition.
I think it's just
going.
probably harder to be
We should probably ask them,
outspoken about it. Again, yeah. So obviously, I can't provide the actual answer about how anyone feels, right? But
It's interesting though.
what I would think is that if someone were to speak out in that way, they would more quickly be turned
Met with more resistance.
exactly than you are here. Like here, you may feel you're more likely to like find someone that'll be like, yeah, like and then support you.
Yes.
But in those countries, you might,
Like, shut up.
yeah, exactly.
Well, my prima, she lives in El Salvador. She is 17, I believe, this year. They make her make tortillas. You know, she has to watch her brothers while her mom's out, and she doesn't get the freedom that we had here as teenagers or as an adult. So I definitely see that pattern is still being continued to be passed down out there.
For sure.
And the men, the same thing. Like, they have to go out, do their jobs, come back, and bring home the money, you know? To me, that completely sucks.
Yeah.
Because she tells me, like, this is not the way I want to live, or I wish I could go live in the United
Also, she
States.
feels it, though.
Yeah, she completely feels it. I mean, now that we have social media, they see what life is here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they have a broader aspect.
I was going to say, like, if you don't know what you're missing, you just kind of fall into the routine. Yeah.
Oh, I know.
So do you think, like, with you bringing that up, do you think now in those countries you're going to see more and more, like, men and women individually speaking up against, like, their roles? Do you think because of social media?
I mean, I think so, slowly but surely. I mean,
I wonder.
Very slowly probably in some other places, but, like, it starts with people like her cousin, right? Like, that she just mentioned, right? Like, it just maybe starts with 1, 2, 3, and, you know, eventually we progress and
kind of like how we did it here. I just think it's a lot slower there. I mean,
it's
slower there.
I think it's gonna be slow to, like, get started, but I think once it starts, it'll probably be fast to actually be implemented. Maybe that's just me being optimistic. I just imagine, because in the U.S. it took forever, like, because there was no other example out there.
That though, here in the U.S. we have the freedom to be who we want to be. In these other countries, you really don't. They're very concentrated in their religion, and then in that religion, you are not able to do certain things. Like, here, we have pro-choice. Out there is no choice. If you're pregnant, you are pregnant.
That's another thing, right? How strong religion is in that culture, like how strongly
it is very
rooted in that culture, right? And again, the U.S. being such a, I guess, diverse place, there isn't one singular kind of dominating religion, sort of. Even, I mean, there's more common than others.
It's slightly detached from, like, the culture.
Yeah,
right?
that's
well, like, when you say like American culture, you're not so quickly to attach Christianity.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
And like, you do in someone, right? That's when people say, like, oh, this is a Christian country. Like, our founding fathers were, you know, Christian men.
Yeah.
X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. But it's not as ingrained the way it is in Mexico, I guess, in Honduras. And so is it?
Catholic.
It's Catholic as well.
Do you consider yourself?
No. I mean, oh, Mom, I'm sorry. I was raised Catholic, but they were never every Sunday goers. We were more like whenever it was Ash Wednesday.
Oh, this is what I was talking about last time.
like
a C&E Catholic?
Yeah.
Christmas and Easter?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was more like that.
Cool.
Now that I'm older, I think I've chosen myself to be non-denominational. You know, I believe in God, but that's about
But you don't really, like, strongly practice a specific, like,
No.
Okay, yeah, because Catholicism definitely has its way about being Catholic, so you have to kind of follow.
Yeah, in El Salvador, for example, if you are if you're gay, they don't like that. They look at you like your parents raised you wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and to me, since I'm all about it, you know, I'm like, if you're gay, I'm shoot.
That's cool.
That's what's up, you know.
Yeah.
I love that.
Do your thing, man.
Yeah.
Is this boy cute?
Help me out.
So that is something that the countries there, they do have some differences that I completely don't agree with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's a progression thing, right? Like, there's still, it's like it's very rooted in that religion,
Very
right?
rooted.
For sure.
Okay, cool. So a little bit more about, I guess, the dynamic of.
Just noticed I can finally peek at what you have on your laptop.
I'm always remixing over here, bro. So you already spoke about it a little bit, but this kind of came up in conversation with you and I when we were talking on the phone. The men in your family, like, one, like, you just talked about your brother being babied.
Yeah.
A little bit. And then, I guess, can you speak more on just, like, the overall dynamic?
If you're cool with it.
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
The men in my
Just wanna make
family,
sure.
They're just some interesting stories.
yeah, some interesting stories. The men in my family, don't get me wrong, I love my uncles, I love my brother, I love my cousins, but they don't have a sense of, what's the word? I wouldn't say loyalty. They just don't know how to, when they're married or have a girlfriend, they don't know how to stick to that one person. They tend to step out of lines and do things that they shouldn't do. You know what I mean? For example, they're cheaters.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, just point
We're being
blank.
around the bush.
I mean,
Yeah.
just
You know, they try.
And you can cuss on this podcast, by the way.
Okay,
It's
awesome.
okay.
Yeah, they are completely man whores. I want to say, I wasn't saying, I don't want to say it's all of them, but now that I look back, I think at least they have at least once in their life stepped out.
Interesting.
For example, my uncles, they are married, and when they were living here, they had a wife here and they had a wife over there. You know what I mean? My dad.
Goals. No, I'm just playing.
They were double dipping.
Bro, I'm playing.
They were double dipping.
You're going to cancel this man. Over
For real.
here.
I
I'm out
am
right now.
completely joking.
Ladies, beware.
Oh my goodness.
Now it's making sense. Now I understand.
My brother is the same way. He is 30 and he's had multiple girlfriends, but settling down is just not. It's not what he's
Commitment issues.
I wouldn't say it's commitment
Oh,
issues.
okay.
He just doesn't. No lo quiere. No, he just doesn't want it. I mean, he already has a woman who cooks, cleans, which is my mama. I don't think he's looking for like that ever after.
With somebody else.
Yeah, like how women do.
Interesting.
My dad did the same thing. He did step out of the marriage that he had with my mom. He had a love child, and my grandma found out, and my grandma was like, "Oh, this is the solution. Don't leave him. Just don't let him come back to El Salvador alone." And that was how
your mom's mom or
my dad's mom, my
okay.
abuela.
Gotcha.
And what's crazy, the same thing happened to her. My grandpa did the same thing with
To your
the maid.
grandma.
Yeah, and they had a love child, and my grandma was like, "All right, I'm gonna fire the maid, but I'm gonna raise this child as my own."
That's crazy.
So it's been a very normal thing in my family, and I wish it wasn't normal because as a woman, that shit's not right.
Yeah,
You know,
for sure.
it fucks us up. It makes us think that, oh, it's okay for a man to cheat on you because he's gonna come back to you anyways.
Yeah.
And he's gonna take care of you. But come on now, ladies, that is not the way to go. No one really wants a man like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think one of the most interesting things that you like spoke about was the fact that not only was this happening, like not only were the men doing this, right, which is one, the first wrong, right, like initially, like you don't do this,
Right.
but number two is when it did happen, the women would almost become enablers after a while.
Yeah.
It seems like there was
We got
almost no
used to it.
consequence.
Like kind of like
Yeah.
numb to it. Like there was. I mean, I remember my mom. Oh, I love my mama. There were days that she was just really bummed, really sad. She even made me remember my dad's license plate so we can go find his car. You know what I mean? It got so crazy at home. But
Do you
to
still
me-
remember the license plate number?
Oh, not all of it. I remember the first one was like R23, something like that. But I don't remember the last. But
Oh
I
my
was
God.
super young, and I remember my mom would call my dad and be like, "¿Dónde estás?" And my dad would be like, "Oh, estoy en el billar," which is like the billiard place, right? And he would hang up, and my mom would be like, hop in the car, driving down there. And I'm just like, "Oh," and she'd be like, "Which one's his car?" And I'm like, "Oh, the black Honda, that one, the Accord, that's him." And sure enough, we'd park and we'd wait till he would come out. It was bad. You know, looking back, it is very bad. But as a child, that was my norm.
And they were still quote unquote together?
Yeah, they were. I mean, he would come home at night, and that was dad. He would do what dad do.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And I loved my dad, but
Yeah.
at the time, I was so young, and I didn't understand what had happened. I didn't know about the affair until I was 14. The little girl must have been maybe 6 or 7 at the time, and it completely ruined my high school experience.
Yeah.
Because at 14, you know what cheating is now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I was like, oh, so this is why my mom acts this way. And it made my heart soften for her. Especially since she wanted me to be such a girl, and I just didn't want to be so girly. I put this barrier between us. And then once I found out what my dad did, I broke that barrier, and I was like trying to be my mom's best friend, you know, try to comfort her whenever I would see her break down. There was days that I remember we were going to do a little cookout, and something was going on between them, and she got so frustrated that she threw the carne asada on the floor. And little
Not
me,
the carne.
I mean, it was raw. It was still raw. And I remember like picking it up, trying to be like, okay, I can fix this. I can
Wash
fix this.
it.
You know, like, yeah, I was like, I can fix this. And my dad just dipped, you know?
Damn.
And it wasn't, those 4 years of high school were like probably the most hardest 4 years for me, for him, and for my mom. My brother was really close to my dad. My brother knew all my dad's secrets, and he was my dad's secret keeper, basically like that.
Oh, really? Did he know, like, pretty much interesting?
He knew. I was the last one to find out about the affair.
Damn.
Crazy.
And being the last one, especially being daddy's little girl, that shit, I feel like I was being bitch slapped. You know,
Yeah,
I was
for
like,
sure.
damn, the man that I love, how can he do this, you know?
Yeah.
And it was just a really bad cycle after that. It was just nonstop accusing, you know, like he would come home and be like, oh, you helped your mom figure out whose number this was that I was calling. And I'd be like, I didn't even know you could do that. You know, I don't pay my phone bill. I didn't know that. So it was tough. It was tough.
That's a lot. I mean, that's a lot to bear at, like you said, for your mom, but even as you being a 14-year-old kid, that's tough.
And I give kudos to my mom. She handled it, I wouldn't say like a boss, but she handled it a lot way better than I did. I turned to some things that I'm not very proud of. You know, I was self-harming. I shut down. My grades sucked. I didn't look forward to the future. I didn't really care what was going on tomorrow. I was just so consumed in that day's pain that I just wanted to be numb, you know? And now that I'm older, I just make sure my mom's happy. Like, we'll go out, we'll talk, we're best friends. I tell her literally everything. And when I was younger, I didn't. I was just so scared that whatever I would tell her was too much and she just couldn't handle it on top of my dad. Yeah. You know, so it changed us, but now we're good. Yeah. In a sense, you know?
I think whenever you were like kind of telling me about this, I thought, is this something that you see across the board when someone, or I guess you see it more commonly in circumstances where they have their homelands that they go to often, right? They have another family somewhere else. Because where we're from, like my parents, like back home, my mom and dad are from the same pueblo. So like my dad would, I guess it'd be very difficult to have like a secret family or like a love child. But when like you talked about it, you said that it's not uncommon if a man has a family here and a man and a family back home. Yeah. And that's one thing that I thought was wild.
I mean, thinking about it, it is wild, to be honest. You know, like, how can you have two different families and how can you support two different families in two different countries? You know what I mean? Yeah. There was a while where my dad was visiting El Salvador by himself, and this is where the affair happened. This happened after I was 6, because I was wondering, like, why don't we go anymore? And like, I loved it so much, like, why aren't we going? And mom was just like, oh, we just can't because you guys are in school during the time. And that was the excuse that I took, right? Yeah. Because they would go in January, which is true, we were in school. Yeah. But I was like, but we're off in the summer, so why can't we go in the summer? But little did we know, my dad was hoeing. That's crazy. And in other small, short words, he was just being a hoe out there. Interesting. And he got caught up. And now she's 18. And I don't talk to her. Not like I don't
ever. Like, have you ever spoken to her?
I'm gonna be completely honest. It wasn't until COVID time where I was like, let me ease my heart towards this girl, because I don't know if it's anger like or resentment towards her, kinda? Because every time I looked at her, I was like, you're the reason why my parents were going through such a hard time, and them going through a hard time made me go through a hard time. So it was just, I connected her to my pain, and I wasn't about it. You know, I became really aggressive as I became an adult. And I remember just going like 2 years ago, and I was like, if I see her and she comes up to me,
it's on site.
Yeah, it's like, on site. Like someone called the consulate just to make sure that they got me, because
oh my god,
did you get the consulate?
I was so upset.
Oh my word!
And I remember seeing her mom looking at me and then looking at my mom, and I was just like, oh no, like it's about to go on. Like, somebody grab my mama, because something's gonna go down.
Do you have the hands though?
Oh, I have the hands. I have the hands. Trust me.
Insert gunshots. Where the gunshots?
I'm dead.
When you're angry, you are angry.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Se te mete la rabia, and anything could happen. I've learned that is not healthy. It's better just, and plus it wasn't like, oh, hey, I chose him to be my dad. You know, so I was putting my anger in the wrong spot. Now we follow each other on Instagram, and that's about it. Gotcha. You know, we don't like each other's pictures. We don't say hello, nothing like that. But baby steps.
It's kind of weird. Yeah, for sure. I was gonna ask. I didn't know how much you had spoken with her, but like you were saying, you blamed her, but at the same time, like, she was just a product of it, kind of, right? So I was wondering if you had knowledge of what she felt in the situation.
No, and I would love to know how she feels, because I think of myself as a younger girl, and I'm just like, man, I loved my dad. I was daddy's little girl. Wherever dad went, I wanted to go. And he was a great dad. Don't get me wrong. He was an amazing dad. And a part of me feels sad because he wasn't that person for her, you know? And it bothers me now as a woman to be like, man, what if that would have been me? What if I would have got pregnant and the man just left us high and dry? Yeah, it was a mistake. It was something we shouldn't have been doing, but still, you guys created life. Like, you don't care to check in or to know what she's like, or, I mean, she looks just like us. Really? She looks just like us. There's no denying that she is not my dad's kid. She looks like me, but just a teenage version, just not
crazy
curly hair.
Interesting.
So wild.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I think a lot of people
That's heavy.
can kind of, I think, attach themselves to the idea that men have kind of not been held accountable the way they're supposed to. Because even earlier when you said, right, like your grandma went through the same thing with your grandpa, instead of saying, and again, it's not her fault, right? So I don't want to make it seem like, you know, she should have done XYZ because that's what she should have done, right? She did what she thought was in her best interest at the time. But she immediately jumped to being a problem solver.
Yeah.
Like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to raise this kid as our own.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to have these conversations and address the actual cheating and the actual, you know, wrongdoing as opposed to, you know, everything else.
Yeah.
And break these trends that you see because... Yeah, I mean, I hadn't seen it when you told me that, and then I found out that, like, you know, stuff.
I feel like that mentality
happen.
comes from that same concept of the woman always having to kind of do all the cooking, cleaning, like that sort of stuff. Like being, I don't know.
She
what
cleans
the
up
word
the
is.
mess.
Exactly.
Right.
She cleans up the mess.
And that sucks for sure. And I think that's what I'm talking about. I think it's like breaking that kind of, you know, like a man needs to clean up his own mess.
Yeah.
But you know what? A man needs to not make a mess.
Yes.
Right. You know what I'm saying?
Don't make the mess in general. Like, don't get me wrong. I know we're not perfect. We're not angels, but there's just so many things that you could have done to prevent the outcome of what happened, you know? Like, a little background on my mom. My mom was married before she met my dad in Honduras. She was already married to a man. They had 2 children, my older sister and my brother. Unfortunately, he was murdered. And my mom had to leave her kids behind and start a new life here. You know, that's just kind of what the norm was, because remember, the man was the breadwinner. So there was no man in that relationship anymore. You know, he was gone. So
that's
my mom
crazy.
was like, okay, I'm going to go to America and I'm going to be sending back money, which she completely did. And then she met my dad the first year she was here. And that's kind of how they met. But my mom already had it in her mind, I can't have more children and not have them have a dad, you know? So when my dad cheated, my mom was scared of, you know, raising children without a man again. It gave her really bad flashbacks of her first set of kids. Yeah. And my sister, her daughter, she's not close with my mom because my mom didn't get to raise her. Yeah. My sister kind of holds a grudge against her because my sister thinks, oh, my mom went to go to America to have other children but couldn't come back for us. But my mom did bring them back, you know, and it was legally. But my sister just could never, I guess, accept that, you know, and even to this day, their relationship is not ideal, you know, and I'm always the one to jump in and be like, okay, no, this is your mom, and you respect her at the end of the day, you know, my mom had a reason, like, she acts like she doesn't know their story, you know? Yeah. So I understand my mom a lot more now. For sure. And I'm pretty sure other women go through similar things or just are also scared of just raising a child alone. Like, it's not easy. I don't have children, but I'm pretty sure it's not easy. You know, a child is expensive. Especially
when you're in that circumstance where you've made the decision to go somewhere else. Yeah. It's like a country unknown and establish a new life for, like, your kids. Kevin and I talked about our stories a little bit about our parents and, you know, like, the sacrifice that they made. And, like, yeah, like, I think a lot of people can really relate to their parents having to go, and that's crazy, right? Like, having a kid and, like, going somewhere, I'm gonna send money back. Like, a lot of people
and that's very
go through
normal.
That. Yeah,
it's very normal for our parents' generation. I think for our generation, it's not.
Shout out to those people that, like, made that, because that's so hard.
Because my mom's story of how she came to America, like, she was brought back in the back of a trailer, and it was all women, and they were all terrified because of, you know, the coyote. It's a man, right? Yeah. There's horror stories of where they get raped and stuff like that. But thankfully, that never happened to any of the ladies. But my mom was, like, no, I wouldn't say the leader, but, like, the protector of the women there too. For sure. She made sure that everyone got fed, got to where they needed to be, and thankfully the coyote that brought them over was very nice. My mom's first meal here was a Big Mac.
Sway.
Dead ass.
Wow.
And she loves Big Macs to this day. So
If that ain't an American story, boy,
Welcome
that's
to America, baby.
I'm saying.
Right?
Here's
Home of the
this.
Big Mac.
Here's this disgustingly big, gross 900 calorie burger.
Yeah.
It's probably more than that, honestly.
just shout out to everyone who is doing it or
For
trying
sure.
to do it for their children.
Absolutely.
That's a huge respect, and it's admiring on what.
And I
they're
think
doing.
so many people can relate to
Yeah.
that story, like their parents' story, right? Like I think, yeah, I would be crazy. Like me, I'm 26, right? Some of these, our parents made a decision as young as like 15,
Younger.
16.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. So shout out to them. So you kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, right? And I think this was something that Kevin and I, again, couldn't really provide a lot of insight. And we haven't even really touched on this topic all too much. But you finding out about your father's, I guess, secret child, love child. You were about 14 at the time.
Yep.
When you found out. And this is a very vulnerable time in any human being's life.
Yeah.
And so finding out something as, especially when you were a daddy's girl, right? Like it can crack the foundation of that relationship. But it led to some mental challenges. And I apologize, found out, I don't know how to bring this up in the most eloquent way. But can you like speak a little bit about that and what it felt like? Could you not go to your mom about, hey, I feel this type of way? Like, what was that like kind of going through those challenges?
I didn't speak up about my self-harm until maybe I was about a sophomore, junior. I think it was that summer. It had got so bad. My mentality back then was whatever problem I have, I would count them. And then when I got home, I would make a cut for each problem. So I was a girl that was super sensitive. So if a teacher yelled at me, got a bad grade, or I just felt like I wasn't being the best that I could be, that was a reason for me to go home and do it. It got so bad where I would take the scissors from the teachers, go to the bathroom, do what I needed to do, and come back. And I would wear tons of bracelets, tons of bracelets to cover it. And no one really knew besides like my best friend Jasmine at the time. And she was a lifesaver. She was my outlet to talk to. I really couldn't talk to my parents about it. It was very taboo in our household.
Yeah.
I remember trying to tell my mom. She was like, "Oh, estás loca. We don't think like that." And I remember thinking, "Oh, okay. I won't say anything anymore." I remember putting my hand up on the door. We were watching somebody leave, and she was like, "Oh, ¿qué es eso?" And I was like, "Oh, it's my hair." You know when you put like your hair tie around your arm and it makes like that weird dent?
Yeah, I do it all the
She
time.
believed it.
Yeah, I was like, no. I'm sorry, no.
She actually believed it, and I was
Dang.
just like, oh, I wish she would have not believed it. I wish she would have got onto me about it and been like, what is going on?
Yeah.
It got so bad where I was just not wanting to get up to do anything. I wouldn't want to eat anything anymore, and she would take me to the doctor. And I remember telling him like, hey, I am super sad. Like, I have some really nasty thoughts. Tell me why all he did was just take my blood and tell my mom that I was drug free and that I was fine.
Interesting.
And that was it.
Was it an American doctor?
No, a Latino doctor. On
Garbage.
that.
Yeah, I think that just speaks to, the idea that it's like you said, it's so taboo.
It is.
You can't really, as a kid, right, feel comfortable like having this conversation because you're almost kind of inclined not to.
Mm-hmm.
The very first time that you spoke up about it, was there like resistance to it, or what was that like?
I wouldn't say it was like resistance. It was more like my mom was like, no, not my child. No,
Yeah.
not you. Like, why are you sad? What's going on in your life that you're sad? And it was
Yeah.
just hard for me to tell her, well, the affair, like the fact that dad is acting like he's not my dad. My dad was doing some crazy shit. He got drunk one night and we were coming back from my sister's house in Garland, and he was so drunk that my mom was like, hey, stop driving like that, or let me drive. And he goes off on her and she's like, oh, pull over. So he pulls over and she gets out. And I'm like, oh, crap. Like, let me get out with my mom. I'm not going to leave my mom, So I get out with her and he takes off. I remember just staring at the tail lights, and he's just taking off.
Damn.
And me and her are walking down the freeway. It was like the exit on Garland. And it was just a moment that I can never forget.
Mm-hmm.
Like, damn, my dad literally just left us. Like, something that I never thought would ever happen. Like, I get we would argue. I get, we were fighting at home. But to actually leave us in the middle of the night, like, he's fucking crazy, I remember calling my ex-boyfriend my boyfriend at the time, and he sent his mom, and she picked us up. We stayed a couple of days there, and we came back home.
Oh, wow.
And that it was never talked about again. No apologies. No, I'm never gonna do it again, and nothing was ever said.
You just kind of swept it under the rug.
Yeah, and that
Interesting.
was
It's another thing to internalize.
Yeah, that was another thing. Like, we never really spoke about things. It was just always just swept away, or just put in a little box and bottling up. You know?
I think a lot of people can relate to that, right? Having to like hold things in that you really want to speak about, especially when you're young.
Oh yeah.
And then you hold on to that as you get older, right? When you get older, you end up doing the same thing and not talking about it.
We see ourselves doing the same exact thing that we did not want to do when we were younger, or things that we didn't want to experience when we were younger, and it sucks that we are continuing the cycle without actually knowing that we're continuing the cycle when we honestly just wanted to break it. You know, that was one thing where I was just like, what's going on? You know, like, why do I feel like I'm my mom right now? Like, why am I putting my own self in this position to feel this kind of pain or to experience this again with another man? You know, It may not be my dad, but the fact that I allowed things like that to happen to me in my adult life, it just makes me think like, damn, that what happened to me younger is affecting me now. You know?
What did that look like once you actually started having conversations about, you know, your mentality with your mom?
The breakthrough that we had, I think I was about 20 or 21. I ended up at Green Oaks. If you guys don't know what Green Oaks is, which I hope you guys don't, it is a mental hospital here in Dallas. It was after my third try of suicide. My mom couldn't get a hold of me. So she called my boyfriend at the time and was like, why is she not answering? Why have you not answered? And he just didn't know what to tell her. And hung up on her. He doesn't speak Spanish, so he just hung up on her. My brother called, said it in English, was like, bro, what's going on? And he told her, like, your sister's at Green Oaks at a mental hospital. And when I got released, about maybe 9 days later, my mom was like, so why were you there? And then I just could not hold anything back anymore. I was just like, Mom, A, B, and C happened when we were little. You know, Dad doing this, Dad accusing me of helping you find the proof and whatnot, him leaving us, and just him being not a good dad for those 4 years fucked me up, you know? And I didn't feel like there was a reason to live. Like, I lived for my parents, and I felt like my parents did not give two shits at the time.
Gotcha.
And it made her cry. She was just like, Stephanie, did you ever think of how my life would be like without you? Like, she goes on to say that if I was to actually die, that she would die too. Yeah. And when she told me that, and you could just see the pain in her eyes, when you would see the pain in her eyes, it made me just, something clicked in me for some reason. It was just like, okay, Steph, you don't want to see your mom do that. You know, I don't want to put that pain onto her again. So ever since then, I've just not done it anymore. There's days, don't get me wrong, there's days where things get tough, but I just don't want to cut anymore. I got a tattoo over my cuts, and yeah, I can still see the scars, but they're not me anymore. I'm not that sad girl. I don't go in a corner and cry. I don't tally up my problems of the day so I know how many slices I need to do, or how many times I need to burn myself. I refuse to be that broken girl. You know, I wanted to be stronger for me, for my mom, to show her that, yes, we go through things, and yes, we may fall and be broken, but we can always stand back up if we want to. Yeah. You know what I mean? If you really, really want to, you can be so much more than just your pain.
Do you now feel, and that's beautiful.
Thank you.
But do you now feel that you can talk about it more?
Oh yeah.
After having that breakthrough with her?
For sure. I remember, like, it was a topic that you did not want to mention to men. You know, oh, this is my past. I would always kind of hide that, and whenever they would see my scars, and they'd be like, oh, why do you have so many in one spot? Like, how do you explain that? You couldn't. You just had to be honest. So some men, they looked at me like, oh, she's fucking crazy. And that shit pissed me off. Yeah. It's not that I was crazy. I was hurt. I was upset. I was depressed. I'm not crazy. I was just not good. You know, I was not mentally good. And I know now that I am generally a bubbly person. I'm pretty cool to be, like, I want to say to be around, but to have fun with. You know, like, I am very go with the flow type girl. But I am also very sensitive. But I've learned that with sensitivity, you can either process it in a way that it hurts you, or you can turn that into a strength.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Find strength in your weakness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not ashamed of it. I am not ashamed of it at all. My sister didn't know that I was doing that, and I told her. I was like, hey, this is why I was gone for the last week and a half. And she was like, oh, Mom said you were just sick. No, I was sick in the mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I was doing some shit that I shouldn't have been doing. And my sister was like, well, why wouldn't Mom tell me that? And I was like, well, you know, Mom, like, that's not, they don't want people to know that you're not right. Like, to them, it's like, oh, I did something wrong for my child to be this way. And it may be true, but it's also not fully them either.
Yeah.
You know, I chose the decision to do that. I could have easily just cried, or just talk to my friends about it at school, but I'm the one that made the decision to pick up the blade or pick up a knife or a scissor, whatever it might have been that day, to do what I did.
Yeah.
You know, so.
There's a couple of things, like when we go back to like the taboo thing and like not being able to talk, and it took so long to get that breakthrough with your mom. I think, like I was gonna say in my case, I mean I haven't experienced anything like what you're saying, but I have had conversations just about kind of mental health, kind of, and I think it's so hard for parents and that generation to understand sometimes, because like we were talking about earlier, like shout out to them, like I can't imagine everything that the decisions they had to make.
Oh, yeah.
And so they see us here now, like in America or whatever, in good schools compared to them, and they're like, what do you have to worry about?
Yeah.
What do you possibly have to worry about? Like, how is your life so hard? And it's such a, I mean, it obviously leads to terrible things, right? When there's that lack of understanding sometimes.
Yeah. I think they're just quick to say, you have the least worries.
For sure.
Like,
they're
like
so
comparing each other's problems.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Everyone's problem weighs differently on everyone else. You know
It's all
what I'm
about
saying?
context.
Yeah. So it's just, I mean, you just have to be, what's the word? Open to people's pain. Like, don't judge them for it, or don't be like, oh, that you're tripping over nothing. No, their feelings are valid.
For sure. Empathy is so important, and I think it's kind of what you spoke to, right? Is it's okay to feel this way, right? And the part that we have to stop doing is denying you don't feel this way. Not my child, not my daughter, right? But instead saying, tell me about it. Like, let's talk about it.
Or how can I help you?
And even and even if it's, I don't know how to help you, but I'm here to listen to you, and we can find out how to manage the way you feel, because you feel the way you feel.
Yeah.
And when you try to kind of deny someone that, it's a slippery slope that can lead down.
Yeah, you can slide on that slope very, very quickly, and you don't want to be the reason why someone does something detrimental to themselves.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember the first time I tried suicide, I was a junior. I took all my mom's pills. My mom had just got diagnosed with a breast cancer tumor.
Oh, no.
And my dad was just so checked out of it. And my brother kept calling it boob cancer. So I was just so annoyed at home.
Yeah.
I was frustrated. And once I saw my mom getting better, she had all these leftover pills. And I was just like, all right, let me take myself out. Now that my mom's better, she doesn't need me. Because life still at home was not good. I took a whole handful. And I literally thought I was not going to wake up the next morning. Which was my goal, right? I did wake up. But I was throwing up everything that I took. I was pale to the skin. You could look at me now. I'm pretty tan. I was like white. I was blanquita, like ghost. And my mom was like, oh, ¿qué te pasa? And I didn't want to tell her, And she never really asked about it. She didn't, ask, where are my pills? What are you doing with the bottle? Because everything was left on my bed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I left proof, basically. I can be completely honest. I just wanted them to see me. I just wanted them to hold me.
To be heard.
To be heard, or just at least someone to tell me that they loved me, you know? And I didn't really get that from my family. I got it from my boyfriend at the time. He was definitely one that would stop me from cutting or try to comfort me. His family was more American. They were Chicanos, so they spoke a lot more English. And his mom was just...
Excuse me.
She was my angel.
Yeah.
She was very, very open to my problems, and she was a Catholic woman. So at first I was like, oh, she's not going to like me. She's going to tell him to leave me. Those thoughts started to run through my mind. And then next thing you know, she was just like, I see you as a daughter. Come over on Sundays. I can tell you I love you. And then sure enough, that's what she did. She would hold me
Shout out to her. That's great.
For real, like
Yeah.
she was an amazing woman, and I am very grateful that I at least had certain people in my life. Now that I look back, I can honestly say I did have people in my life, but I was looking for that with my parents.
Of course. Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, in that trying time, what help were you able to get, if any? Because you mentioned your friend, your best friend earlier.
Yes.
Now you mentioned your boyfriend. So, or what's, I don't want to say steps did you take, because obviously it's not, but like, I don't know, what kind of, is there anything that stands out that like you're glad happened, or you're glad you had because it helped at all? Like,
What I would be glad was that I did have friends that were aware of my situation. So if they saw that my bracelets were getting longer, like more, like I was stacking more, they knew I was cutting more. She would call in and check on me. Shout out to Jasmine Sanders if you're watching this.
hey, shout out to her.
You were my lifesaver, girl.
You should watch this.
I will definitely tag her because she definitely. We were great. We were raised completely different, you know. But she understood me in all types of levels. She never judged me. She was always there whenever I needed a call, text, or whatever it may have been. She was my one, you know. I did have another friend in my neighborhood. She was my brother's age, and her name is Estefani. But now she has gained her angel wings. She's up in heaven, and she also helped me. Her mom knew that I was cutting, and they literally lived down the street from me. Her mom would call me and be like, "Hey, I'm making food for the kids. Come down, hang out with us." She was like one of us. She was a very young, hip mom. She also helped me. My ex-boyfriend, of course, he's my ex now, but he was a good boyfriend.
He was a part of that.
Yeah, he was a really good boyfriend. I do know one of my health teachers at the time, she noticed my cuts and she sat me down and was like, "What's going on?" And I just kind of broke down to her, and she made me see the school counselor, but I wouldn't say I was happy about it because the school counselor at our school was the type of counselor that'd be like, "Oh, so how does that make you feel?" Like,
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Not really prepared to have this kind of conversation.
So it was just, I just felt like I kept reopening my wounds and they were never being healed.
You weren't healing them.
Yeah. And
Gotcha.
so I just stopped going there. And I just stuck to talking to my friends, and they saved me.
Your friends are important. That's why, like, you know, I think they say it in a joking way, but like, check on your friends or whatever.
Absolutely.
No,
Sometimes,
definitely.
like,
Check in on your
because you
friends.
never know
friends.
whose life you're saving.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah.
Or just, you know, just to listen.
I think just
say.
having someone there, like it's like you said, right? Knowing that someone cares about you is so important. So thank you so much for sharing that, and you know, you're a strong woman, and thank you so much. But before we transition, right? We always want to mention that if anyone is ever out there having anything, you know,
Reach
any kind
out,
of
guys. Don't be afraid to talk to your parents. Don't be afraid to talk to your friend about it. Whatever it may be, just don't be afraid of it. We would rather see you work on it and be here rather than having to see you at a hospital or at a funeral. That is not the goal. Remember that your pain now is valid and we can get through it together. You know, we can always find ways to get through it together. You are never alone. Don't feel alone, because trust me, there is a whole group of people just wanting to cheer you on and see you strive. So definitely hang in on there. You know, I know it's hard to be strong, but I promise you it will get better if you just hang on, you know, just hang in there. It will get better, I promise you.
Beautifully said.
Beautifully said.
Do we not have any burp, 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 like?
I know, that was awesome. I don't think we have a soundboard that can do that justice. But no, again, thank you so much for sharing that. I guess the only other kind of topic we want to touch on a little bit, you told me a story about, and you know, we're related back to being in high school. High school is such an impactful time.
In formative years.
Formative years. It's crazy.
It builds you. It kind of just shapes you up to be the adult you're going to be too, you know?
I'm still a loser to this day.
Shout out to losers.
I think you're so cool, Kevin. But you were a loser.
Thanks, man.
But no, you told me a story about how when you, so direct context, we went to this school called Townview, which was basically a building that had 6 separate schools in it that kind of specialized in like its own little area, right? Business, law, health, engineering, whatever it was. But it was a magnet school, and it had like, I would say a very heavy Latino population,
Oh, yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
it was probably like 50-60%.
Yeah.
And maybe like 20-30% black, and then maybe
very
the
little
other.
white folk.
Yeah, there was a lot.
There was a very little white
Yeah,
folk.
and then
very
there was
minority
like
heavy.
a lot of there was a lot of Asians and maybe a couple. I can't remember, but you told me a story about how at first you were kind of not seen as like a typical Latina for the first time.
So freshman year, you're coming in. Townview kind of recruits kids from all over Dallas. So remember that we're coming from every little suburban city that we can kind of get in Dallas. So me from being from Farmers Branch, it was just no one really from my middle school went to Townview with me. Maybe like a couple of us, but we were in different clusters, you know. And I remember just walking in my first day and being like, all right, I'm gonna just click with my friends. Everything's gonna be fine. Chill, right? No, it was not like that. I did not get any Latin friends until maybe my sophomore year. And I think it's because someone heard me speak Spanish. And before that, everyone kind of just associated me with one of the black kids, which I don't mind, but in my mind, I was always like, well, why put me like in this box? Like, why can't we just be friends because you like me as a person rather than what I look like, you know?
Was that the first time someone had kind of
for sure, yeah,
labeled you as like a black girl?
Interesting. Even the black kids called me light skinned, and they knew I was Hispanic, and they didn't care. I mean, they were super super cool, but the Latinos, they were just. I couldn't get a Latin boyfriend to save my life. You know what I mean?
Dang.
They looked at me like, oh.
Even with the hair? Was curly hair?
Curly hair was not really cool back then.
It was
it was not a thing, you know?
Curly hair's the wave.
It was for Rudy. Rudy loved the curls since he was a kid.
Oh, I appreciate that. I
sure did. You sure did.
I remember just like, I always just thought, you know, I don't know. I mean, I look at my skin color and I'm just like, I don't think I'm that dark. Looking at Kevin, I think we're like the same skin color.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think you just have like features that I think maybe people associate.
But I'm just like, but why does it even matter? You know what I mean? I was always raised to be just friends with anyone. If you feel good around them, that's going to be your friend. You know, it doesn't matter que si son blancos or si son... You know,
azules.
Or azules, you know?
Ángeles azules?
It didn't matter. It didn't matter to me.
Yeah.
But it bothered me that I just could not make Latin friends to save my life.
Yeah, they kind of like didn't put you in
like
the circle.
Yeah, because I was like, I can speak Spanish. Like, I can have a whole conversation.
Yeah, you told me that like,
you know what I mean?
that if someone didn't know and they were like speaking Spanish.
These Latin girls, I don't know their names now. I mean, I do know their names, but...
Hey, at them. No, I'm just playing.
Fuck them girls, man.
They were talking mad shit about me because I had dated one of their friends who wasn't going to Townview anymore. He failed out basically, and they're just talking mad shit. And I responded to them in Spanish, like I know Spanish, pendeja, you know, like no soy dunda.
Ooh.
And they looked at me like,
got him.
and I was like, these bitches. And then they made my high school experience like those were bullies to me.
Yeah.
Until like I graduated.
Tammy was like very cliquey. Like if you was cool, like. I mean,
I honestly think though, if you were popular back then, I think that was your peak.
There's definitely some people that like peaked for sure. Like, you know, everyone's on their own journey, and high school can be challenging time for everybody. But yeah, I definitely. And
then most of the Latin girls, they were very, I wouldn't say superficial, but they were more like, oh, makeup and Jordans and
hot Cheetos.
And hot Cheetos.
And pickles.
You know, oh, man.
Gross.
Oh, man. And the tea from the cafeteria, banging.
Yo, why do y'all eat that for breakfast? I don't understand.
What?
You
The hot Cheetos?
Hot Cheetos and pickles for breakfast. You never seen that?
Disgusting.
That's what they were out there just.
My limit was at 10:30. Anything after 10:30 was okay.
Bro, yeah, high school was a wild time, bro. It was like you started
Cheeseburgers and chocolate milk.
Bro,
for lunch.
Oh no!
What an active time in your life. It's 7 a.m. and like literally anything can happen. You out here eating pickles, hot Cheetos, you could get jumped. You know what I'm
Not
saying?
at Townview.
Not at Townview, but it's in high school.
Okay.
Like, well, it's such a weird time. And
There was maybe like a handful of fights since we were there the whole 4 years.
Richard was probably in half of them. Shout out to my boy Big Rich.
he fought a pillar.
Oh, I remember that. Oh yeah, he couldn't go. Man, shout out to him. But interesting. No, so like, I think the one of the reasons that I reached out to you as well was because you had posted on your Instagram about was it in El Salvador or was it in Honduras? Was there like where your family is from? There's a big subset of Afro Latinos.
Yes, specifically San Alejo, which I did not know.
¿Qué es eso?
Afro Latino is basically having African descent but being Latin. And in a sense, I knew this because, you know, we don't get tan just because we stand in the sun for so long. Like, no, that tan would eventually fade away. our permanent skin color is because we got a little black in us.
Your grandpa is Jamaican, or
supposedly is from Jamaica, but I have never done an ancestry to actually prove it. You know what I mean? And Papita Cruz, that's my grandpa. He doesn't hear well. So you have to literally be yelling at him to ask. So I have just never asked.
Gotcha.
But there was this post on Salvadorian Facts, and it mentioned that San Alejo's population was heavily Afro Latinos, and I was like, what? Like,
yeah,
that's where my dad's from. That's my little pueblo, and I was like, no way. I was like, that explains so much. Most of us are very, very, tan skinned or just darker, and our hair is kinky, very, very kinky, or you get curls like mine, and we do have those features, and I was just like light bulb, it clicked in me. And then it also clicked in me that we're not taught that. Even in El Salvador, I asked my cousins who study there, I was like, do you guys get taught on your Afro Latino side? They're like, no, they just teach us the basic stuff, kind of like here.
I think it's just not known and like super well established, and I think it's a newer thing, right?
Yes.
That's like we were talking about, like even like in just Central America, Latin America, there's not a big effort that goes into kind of identifying like people's backgrounds, like as far as like their lineage goes. And so some of it's just not knowing, right? People just kind of accept that, like, oh, I'm Salvadorian, I'm Dominican, I'm whatever it is. And that's fine. I think that it's okay.
In a sense, they've assimilated to that culture.
Yeah, exactly. It's just kind of a part of it. I do think that, there is value in like finding out a little bit more about, kind of just how this country and its people came to be.
Yeah.
And I asked you, and you said you weren't really aware of it, but I do think that at some point with like Afro Latinos, like there does get a point where like the person looks pretty much black.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah. In Honduras. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
I'm dead.
I remember like seeing someone on TikTok and she's speaking Spanish, and I'm like, man, she like it kind of shocked me, and then I felt bad that it shocked me. You know what I mean? And she was Afro Latina too, and she was just, her Spanish was so point on, and I felt like I was listening to my mom talk, you know? But her skin color was just so much deeper than mine. So I just wish that was more of a norm, because in El Salvador and Honduras, if you're lighter, you are the preferred color.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same here as well.
For sure.
I guess we'll see that anywhere.
Well, that happened, and that's kind of what I brought up, right? In high school, that happened, right? Like, you're Latina, but you weren't what looked like the Mexican.
Shade.
Yeah, exactly. You weren't the right shade. So
just a tad too dark.
yeah, and like the Peter Griffin.
He's like, nah. It's fucked up, guys.
Yeah,
for real.
It happens, like colorism, like once like racism starts to kind of just be a part of it as well. I think it's okay when like people from whatever country it may be feel like we don't really think about it, like we are just who we are.
Yes.
But once you really start looking at it, I think it can start to get problematic when people start denying their background in a way like, I'm not black, I'm XYZ.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and I think it's important for them to come around and say, it's okay that I'm black.
Yeah.
I more identify with just being whatever I am, right?
Yes.
Whether it's Dominican, Honduran, Salvadoran. But I think it's also important for them to not perpetuate what seems like racist rhetoric when they're saying, like, I'm not black.
For me, I don't want to offend anyone that is black. Like, I don't want to be like, oh, I'm a black girl, when I've always identified myself as a Latina, as a Salvadorian woman. I've never really been like, oh yeah, I'm a black girl, even though I know we do have African descent in us.
Yeah.
I just don't want to offend anyone, because I've never really claimed myself as that, But I do think, like Rudy said, I do think it is very important for you to know your background, like to fully know your background and be proud of it.
We're just learning. Yeah, I think a lot of it's just learning. Like I said, Afro-Latino and Afro-Latina is still relatively new, and in a lot of these, countries, I think there has to be some kind of, I guess, not research, right, but like, I have to do research on like finding out like who came from where and kind of how these people kind of came to be who they are. But yeah, no, it's interesting, and I think Kevin and I will probably have to dive a little bit deeper just into that entire topic one day as well. But no, I thought the story that you'd said about like being denied access into like the cool crew. I got denied access because I just wasn't cool.
I don't. I just don't. I don't think you were not cool.
Same, bro.
I just always
Kevin was
thought-
a loser.
I'm sorry, Kevin. I just don't remember you from high school.
No surprise there.
Well, everyone knew me just because of the curls. No one really knew my name, which is like, oh, okay, you just know me for the curly hair. I guess I'll take it. I guess I'll take it.
Man,
But,
I was all of like 4'11" in high school and weighed like
But you were so
90
small.
pounds
You were
soaking wet.
4'11"?
I was short as fuck. I don't know how short I
Oh
was.
my god, I was like,
I don't
oh
know.
my goodness. Maybe
He
I
was-
just didn't see you.
He
dude.
was tiny. Kevin was.
And I weighed like 100 pounds. Like,
Yeah,
Who
Kevin
didn't
was.
weigh 100 pounds in high school?
Yeah,
man? I was a
true.
double
Richard-
zero.
man, people stop speaking ill on
Hey,
Richard.
that's my homie. That's my homie. No, but okay, yeah, no,
What a
I just
time.
want to kind of like touch on that topic a little bit. And like I said, Kevin and I will probably dive into it a little bit deeper next time or at some point. Kevin, did you have any other questions? Oh, you had the question about.
Oh, yeah. So I've always wondered, maybe because I like the tea and I like the beef. No, generally, I've always been curious about how other Latin countries perceive each other
Gotcha.
and perceive. So, like, for instance, because you always hear about kind of like the beef that there is between Mexicans and like Central Americans kind of in general.
They hate us.
I wouldn't say we hate y'all.
Yeah,
I
like-
just, from what, okay, I'm just completely honest. My dad just does not like the way you guys talk.
Like our accents.
It's bien pesado, like, ay, wey, or shit like that. My dad is just like, that sounds so bad. But I'm like, but if you hear a Salvadorian speak, we cuss.
I was about to say, when I hear my Guatemalan grandmas speak, I'm like, yo, grandma, relax.
Yeah. So
LOL.
it's just like, what do you even mean, Dad? You know, I think everyone just has an experience with like maybe one mean person of a different.
I mean, Mexicans are annoying. You know, like we can be.
No, I mean, most of all my boyfriends have
You're
been
annoying as fuck.
Mexican.
Thanks, bro.
I don't think
joking,
so.
I love you.
I just feel like I don't know. Maybe it's just like an ongoing thing, or again, what they're used to. Because I have a lot of Mexican friends, and I think they're fine.
So one thing I think, I don't know if this is all facts or not, but I've heard kind of anecdotally from other, is that like, so a lot of Central Americans, the way they get to America, right, is they ride this train through Mexico, right, from their own country. And I think it's called like La Bestia or something, because it's like mad dangerous. Hella people like die on this trip. You fall off. Well, along the trip, while they're going through Mexico, I don't know if, I mean, at least back then, there was a ton of Mexicans
Of course, yeah.
that would abuse, throw
Rape.
rocks, harass,
Interesting.
kidnap, rape, murder, whatever. And so that was kind of like, there was a level of cruelty
Okay.
that was aimed from the Mexicans towards the Central Americans. They were just trying to make their way
I get you.
to the USA. Again, I don't know. This is in the past. I think this goes on still to this day, maybe a little bit. I don't know to what extent, but I think that's where some of it stems from. I think.
Well, I mean, for you to say that is a little bizarre because Honduras and El Salvador went to war with each other. I believe in the year 69, and supposedly it was over a football game, but as I was doing my little
I heard about that,
research,
actually.
it was more than that. Apparently,
I've heard about
Honduras
this.
is a lot bigger than El Salvador. El Salvador got so crowded, and there wasn't land for you to, do your cattle stuff,
The cultivate the land.
Yeah, so a lot of Salvadorians went to Honduras, took up the land, and the government there was like, what the fuck are y'all doing here? Like, y'all are taking up my shit, and my own people don't have anything.
So they beef with each other.
They beefed with each other. And I know for a while it was like, they couldn't stand each other. But from what I understand now, we're all Gucci. Like,
That's cool.
we don't, I mean, I've never seen it. My grandma on my dad's side, my abuela, she's Honduran.
Mm.
And she lives in El Salvador. She lived in El Salvador her whole life, was raised there. But she is born and raised in Honduras. However, though, I did have a Mexican boyfriend. My very first boyfriend of my whole entire life was Mexican. And he was very, very dark skinned. My dad did not like him.
Really?
My mom would call him Negro Zambumba. And I was just like...
What's a sambumba?
Guess that's some.
I don't know what that
Guess that's
is.
It sounds kind of
Is it?
fly.
It's
Yeah, I
like-
know.
It sounds kind of fly.
It's, it's like another word for a fool, like how you guys say way, like that.
Sambumba?
Yeah, Zambumba.
Interesting. I'm gonna add
my
that to the
mom
Rolodex.
It's just I don't know. I was just like, okay. And then, but for at least for my parents and our little culture, they always wanted me to be with the Latin person who speaks Spanish.
Gotcha.
So if you are Latin and you don't speak Spanish, they look at you like your parents did you dirty. You know?
Interesting.
Yeah, like
Kevin and I have talked about that before, and I don't know. It can get.
I don't think that podcast has really been released
It has not
at
released,
the time of recording.
but
tuned.
it's it can get kind of toxic, right? Like kind of that,
Yes.
because at some point you have to like realize that it's not always someone's fault.
yeah.
But no,
Like-
that's super interesting.
My boyfriend now, he doesn't speak Spanish, but he's Chicano. His family, his mom was born and raised in Mexico. Didn't come here until I think she was in her teenage years. But his dad, they were like been here for a good minute. So she was like, well, I can't teach my kids Spanish because their dad doesn't speak Spanish. So how are they going to talk? You know, so the boys never learned Spanish. And my mom's like, why don't you teach him? I'm like, Mom, have you tried to teach an adult Spanish? It's hard.
It is very difficult.
It's very, very
How about
hard.
the Duolingo?
Yeah, you have to. You have to make the effort to like teach someone.
My streak
young.
is over, guys. Dang it.
Oh my
He's
god.
lying. So I know that is something that my parents do look at. They're used to him now. Now my mom is learning little English words to talk to him. So it goes vice versa.
Yeah.
As long as he knows some words and she's knowing some words, they get to talk. But I do notice that whenever me and my parents are in a full-on conversation, he just checks out. And that bothers me. I can't even lie. It bothers me.
Mm-hmm.
I wish he would just kind of know.
Try to engage.
Mhm.
Yeah. Hey, man.
But I can't blame him. He doesn't.
Stephanie's boyfriend, if you're listening, bro,
My bad.
try to engage,
Sorry,
bro.
babe.
It's okay.
I've told you this before, though.
It's okay. So basically, though, as far as beefs go, Honduras and El Salvador used to be, but y'all are good now.
From what I understand, yeah. I mean, I haven't heard anyone being beefing just because we're from a different side of, the border.
Yeah.
If anything, it's more just how we talk to each other.
Interesting.
I hear more beef between us and Mexicans, to be honest.
Yeah, I think
always
some
say
of
that.
it's also probably like just kind of everyone labels anyone that's like Latino, especially in Texas, as Mexican.
Oh, that's
and
big.
that's so annoying.
Like
yeah,
Cinco de Mayo, and people
I
are like,
would-
"Oh, happy Cinco de Mayo."
I'd
I'm
be
like,
like, fuck
First of
that.
all, don't tell me
even
happy
myself.
Cinco.
Yeah, even
I hate when
us.
people tell me happy Cinco de Mayo. Get out of my face.
I'm not a fan of that either. But
Get your margarita out of my face.
I mean, I'll take the margarita, but you don't gotta tell me happy Cinco because I don't even know what the fuck it really means. It's the Battle of Puebla,
Yeah,
right?
yes.
Yeah. Okay. But
Whoop that French ass.
I'm dead. But no, I think we've talked about a lot of really interesting stuff today, and thank you so much.
"Thank you
for
guys.
coming
This
on.
was completely fun. I
Did
can't
you
even
enjoy
lie.
it?
I enjoyed it.
Yes.
This was
Are
fun.
you still nervous or are you good now?
No, I think I might sign up to be an intern.
hey, you know what I'm saying? We hiring, you know what I'm saying? We have a good time here. We always have a little bit of, we have some drinks in the back. It's a good time. But no, thank you again so much for coming and sharing and being very open with us. A lot of what you talked about, I know, can kind of be a little bit heavy. And so just thank you so much for taking the time out to come. And yeah, I think that does it. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Shout out to everyone who's been supporting.
Yeah, so much. So,
if you're
yeah.
still here.
Yeah, no, but before we end, I guess I just want to make sure I say thank you to everyone that's been listening, that engaged, that has been kind of a part of this journey. Shout out to, we have a friend named Johnny that's been helping us with the editing. Big shout out to him. And not just you guys in general. So thank you so much for listening. And yeah, have a good rest of your day.